So I got to thinking this week. I've had several interesting studies and lots of thoughts on what God would have me to share. And I got to thinking about, what do we do when the lovely people are unlovely? I mean, we were like, if the old boy down the street that doesn't know any better acts like a jerk to me, oh well, right? But what about when the lovely people in our lives aren't lovely? They are unlovely.
Sink into depression and withdrawal.
What's that?
I said we sink into depression and withdrawal.
So, hi Cindy. So I was pondering that, and really, in my spirit, this is what I heard. Why do you even notice? Why do you even notice?
Well, it gives us a reason to take offense, of course. If that's what you're looking for.
So if we are looking to God to work in us, and that is our focus, and that's where our minds are, and we don't notice.
Amen.
And so, because there's a lot of religion. I mean, there's lots of nice Bible lessons that would say, well, pray for them, or forgive them and pray for them.
Lay hands on them.
Do not tempt me beyond that. Lay hands on them and pray for them later. No, I'm sorry, I didn't say that. Okay. What about if I pray for me, or let it go to God on my own behalf? Who cares about them? So that was some thought, and I was actually started thinking about that, and I ended up in Philippians 4.
Okay. Well, we turn the page here.
And it's a very familiar verse. It's really nothing new. I don't have it marked here. But Paul instructs us. He opens us up. Oh, actually, sorry, going over here. Philippians 1, and I don't have a verse marked here. I'm in the message. So Paul's writing to me, and he says, I am so excited. I know that God's going to continue the work he's done in you, and he praises them for their efforts toward that end. And then he tells them what he prays for them, and he says, so this is my prayer, that your love will flourish, and you will not only love much, but well. Learn to love appropriately. You need to use your head and test your feelings so that your love is sincere and intelligent, not sentimental gush. Live a lover's life, circumspect and exemplary in Jesus. A life in Jesus will be proud of, bountiful in fruits from the soul, making Jesus Christ attractive to all, getting everyone involved in the glory and praise of God.
Amen.
So obvious, I mean, I hope it's obvious, the thought process sort of evolved from what do we do when the lovely people are unlovely to how do we grow to the point that we're not concerned about how anybody acts.
Amen.
So that Jesus Christ is attractive to all through us.
That's good.
So that Jesus Christ is attractive to all through us. And then Paul writes in the book, he tells us, God will do it, right? He said, God will do it, so don't grumble and complain about the way God's doing it, right? And then he said, then he says, the God of peace will keep your mind. The God of peace will keep your mind. And then right after that, he said, so think on these things. Think on true things. And I started a pretty good word study here, and I'm not going to try not to bore you all, but okay, so think on true things. In the Greek, that word translated true is true, truthful. Okay? Think on things that are honest. Now that word in the Greek has, and the definition from the lexicon here, this was one of the biggest words there. There's a wide sense, there's a wide connotation that's upright, righteous, virtuous, okay, approved of or accepted by God. But then there's a narrower connotation, and it says passing just judgment on others in either our words or as shown by the manner of dealing with them. It's not just what you say.
In fact, I think the Greek word there is actually the pre-spiritual sense is being an example, being the perfect example.
Honest, that Greek word honest is used 4 times in the New Testament. Here it is translated honest. The other 3 times it is translated, at least in the King James, grave, serious, important, not frivolous. Just, pure. And pure is chaste or clear, transparent. And we discussed, I think there was something said last week about how love, true love, is the only thing that's transparent. You can't think lowly of someone and have it not come across.
That's true.
It just doesn't work. Okay?
You're not hiding that seat.
Whatsoever things are lovely. It's translated lovely in the King James. That word is used 1 time. That Greek word is used 1 time in the New Testament in this verse. And it means pleasing or acceptable. So are you thinking on things that are pleasant to you? I heard somebody say one time, well, I just like to be mad. No, you don't. No, you don't. You might like the excuse of being mad you think that it gives you. But people, being mad, I like to be mad. And I guess this person was a Christian, so I'm not saying that generality applies to every human being. There are human beings that probably do really enjoy it. But, we were just having a conversation. I said, well, you're going to get over it. Well, I know, but I just like being mad. Okay, so you're not thinking on things that are pleasant.
No.
You're not thinking on things that are pleasing to you. You're thinking about things that agitate you. So So Paul is saying God's peace is going to keep you, but this is, well, we'll get to that. We'll get there. No, don't get ahead of myself. Think on things that are of a good report. And remember that Paul is writing not to Jews, okay? Not to Jews, not to people who have had this relationship with Jehovah in a sense that there are no other gods, right? Because this in the Greek, that phrase, whatever is of good report, literally means speaking well or uttering words of good omen. Now, as Christians, we go, oh, omens.
That's like saying peace to you.
Exactly. That's like saying peace to you. See, we get all goofed up sometimes, but really, that's what it's saying. Think on things that are of a good report, that are think happy thoughts, and speak, and think on the good words you've heard. Don't dwell on the other words that you've heard. If there's any virtue, and literally that's any particular moral excellence. So if there's anything pure, or anything moral, or anything modest, or anything about that situation that has virtue, think about that. And think about things that have praise. And that word praise literally means commendation. Commendation. Those things that are said that are so much better than whatever else is going on in its class, right?
Yes.
A middle of the road non-committal soldier does not get a commendation. It's the one that's dedicated. It's the one that's determined. It's the one that's going above and beyond. So if there's any commendation, think on those things. Think on. Well, the words in those verses, that the minds that he's talking about, God will keep your mind in peace, right before. That word mind is noema, and it means that which thinks, or literally thoughts or purposes. Thoughts or purposes. God, like our intention, God will keep our thoughts and purposes. So I think what Paul's saying here is the God of peace will keep your thoughts and purposes. And if that's what's going on, this is what you think about. Mm-hmm. If you're trusting Him to do that, these are your thoughts. These are the things that you look for, and these are the things that you think. Well, then that means when the lovely people aren't lovely, you don't even notice. Because that's not what you're thinking about. That's not what you're thinking about. So rejoice and be glad. That's what this note is here. Okay. Sorry. I'm like all excited myself. Okay. So I went back and I started reading the whole chapter again, and Paul opens it with, be careful, anxious, worried. Another definition is seeking to promote oneself for nothing. And then he goes into why we don't need to do that, because then God keeps our minds, and these are all the thoughts that we think.
Amen.
So that was just free, I guess. I won't even charge you for that. Wouldn't you, Wash? Yeah,
Amen.
it's here. This is where obedience. Here is where the righteousness is, and the work of God unto salvation. And here is where our obedience is.
Amen.
Or at least where it begins, because it's our thoughts and our intentions, our processes.